Hello, I'm Susan King, the Dean of the School of Journalism and Mass Communication here at UNC Chapel Hill. And with me today is David Barrett, who is CEO of Hearst Television. Welcome.
Thank you, Susan. I'm delighted to be here.
And we're delighted to have you really at the inaugural Wade Hargrove Colloquium.
And that's special.
It is a big deal here on campus. But we also want to take the opportunity to talk to you about broadcasting. There's been so much emphasis in the last couple of years about the changing world of newspapers. I mean, of course, newspapers leading the front page with these issues. But broadcasting is also going through some changes. What do you think is the biggest change, or do you think it's over-exaggerated?
Well, I think there's a lot of disruption. It has affected newspapers, magazines. It affects television. But we take the view that television is still the most powerful medium for communications in this country, if not the world. We take the view that with this disruption comes great opportunities, and we are pursuing those opportunities across all the platforms. Americans today are watching 5 hours of television every day, and intuitively we feel they're watching more television than that as they spend time on tablets and on phones and are consuming video, which is what television consumption is. So we see opportunity there. The business is not without challenge. There's much more competition than there ever used to be for people's time. But the local television business that Hearst is in is an important business. It's work that matters to local communities, and what we do in terms of local news and local journalism is job one for our television company.
And I sometimes think there's just more television because pictures are everywhere. People are looking at the tablet. They may not be looking at the local TV, but they're looking at video. So is there almost a new business in it? Because when I think of television, I do think of local television where you understand and know the people that you see on TV in terms of news and such. But when you're just looking at a tablet, you could be pulling it from anywhere.
Well, I think people watch the best available screen wherever they are. And if on Sunday afternoon it's at home watching an NFL game or watching prime time in the evening, Monday through Friday, that's the best available screen. That's what people will gravitate to. If they're in a bus in New York City, they may be watching on a tablet and getting an IP delivered signal, or even a mobile transmission of our over-the-air signal on a simulcast basis, which is a new technology that is still in its infancy stages. People are going to be watching on a lot of different screens based on where they are. A buddy of mine's son plays high school football, and he's a Michigan grad, and last Saturday before last, he was watching his son on the field at Weston High School, and he was watching Michigan on his iPad. So it's best available screen.
And so that is the big difference now. You don't have to be connected to a cord anymore to even watch local television, right?
It's mobility. I mean, that's what everyone talks about, and television has the ability to do that. The IP world has some limitations. There's bandwidth congestion, and there's a cost for the use of the bandwidth. We are believers and pioneers as Hearst Television, along with a consortium of other broadcasters, in the mobile handheld standard, which transmits, we think, very efficiently from a single point of our tower to an infinite number of multi-points. Adoption is slow on this service, but I still think that is an arrow that will be in the quiver of media companies to use mobile transmission in a very effective way.
So broadcast is really a little different than just the old-fashioned broadcast.
Oh, very, very different than it was. And we're involved in so many different things. We do what you may call traditional television. We do mobile television. We are sending video and streaming our newscasts to desktops and to laptops. We're using Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. The content that we are creating and curating in the local market is being distributed to all of our viewers in 29 different television stations as people want to consume media. And it's interesting to be here on campus and meet younger people and recognize how different their media consumption habits are, what their expectations are, that are very different from was the case when I was in school.
So I want to follow two different ideas on it. I'm a broadcaster by training, so I still say I'm a broadcaster. And so realizing that companies were able to get those airwaves, which were, the public's airwaves, there was always so much of a sort of sense of public interest and public service that was inculcated in me because
Right.
you were serving that community. And I know Hearst stands for that. And that's been sort of the differentiator between Hearst stations and others, that real sense of that community. Is that built on the broadcast? And if you all of a sudden disrupt that because it can go anywhere, does it change that dynamic? Because you're not just on the public airwaves.
Interesting, Mr. Hearst, 100 years ago, allegedly said, it's good business to be a good citizen. And that shaped his building a great media empire. First in newspapers, then magazines, in radio, and then television, and more recently in cable television and digital media. So, we think that's part of the culture of our company. It's part of the core mission for our company. It is a good business to be a good citizen. And in these local marketplaces, the people care about the communities they live in. I was in Omaha a couple weeks ago, and people there care about what goes on in that city. They have an interest in national stories, of course, but they care about where they live and work. They care about the economy and education and crime. They care about city development. They care about taxes. And local stations are now, and in our case in Omaha, the leading local station, the voice of that community. We chronicle what happens in that community every day, and we do that in the 25 markets that we are in. And I think that's a good business proposition, and I think it's a enduring and sustainable business proposition because with all of the media that's out there, people live in cities. People in Chapel Hill care about what goes on in this community, and that's what a great local television station does.
And no one else does that. You can't just get that from a YouTube
No,
necessarily,
we can't
right?
get that from the national media. And
Yeah.
there's been all kinds of efforts. Patch that AOL started was intended to be a source for local news, and I think they would tell you that it hasn't been as successful an enterprise as they expected it to be. We've got a big beachhead in these local communities, and I say we, the television industry, and I do believe that there will be a Darwinian outcome in terms of how many people can provide the level of local news service that exists today. And in some markets, we see people backing off local news. It's hard to compete if you're third or fourth in a marketplace. If you're first or second in a marketplace, I think the economic prospects can be very good. And we're focused very strongly on being a market leader, and that means we got to allocate the right kind of resources, both human and financial, to maintain leadership in the market. And this notion of being synonymous with the community and being in touch with the heartbeat of the community is what a great local television station does, and that's a business.
But that is the business model, to be the top, the leader.
Absolutely.
Because that's where the money is, too.
Yeah, the difference in terms of ratings and revenue and profitability between number one in the marketplace and number three and four in the marketplace is, could be 3, 4, 5x. And, you need to be a leader in this marketplace to afford the kind of things that we do as a company, whether it's a helicopter service, whether it's investigative reporting that's in the marketplace, whether it's the ability to follow the Patriots when our station in Boston wants to follow the team and be on the road and not rely on stringers or other stations to provide coverage. We want to send our own people. When John Kerry was running for president a few years back, WCVB followed John Kerry. He was the homeboy who was running for president, and we had the resources to do that in a way that was better than others. When a new pope is selected in Rome, our markets where there is a heavy Catholic population had people from our stations in those markets on site in Rome telling that story with a local focus.
And that makes a difference.
That makes a difference. I
Interesting.
mean, we have a lot of very strong television stations in the marketplace, and I think our playbook works. We're not without challenges in some of the markets that we are in, but at Hearst, we really believe that it's about the content. If you're a media company, it's about what you put on the page. It's about what you put on the screen. And if you don't have a proposition for viewers and readers on the page or on the screen, you can't be successful in the media business. So we default to that. And when I talk about screens and pages, that encompasses the digital media world as well. But that's what it's all about. Something's got to be on that television screen, on that laptop screen, on that phone screen that people identify with and that they connect with.
Well, since I'm the type who did content, I'm totally prejudiced and agree with you totally. But there was a time, and as an executive in charge of all these decisions, you do have to think about that technology. But for a while, it seemed like everyone's talking about the pipes, how to get it. So is there a balance that has to be decided, or is it always about the content and you'll figure out the pipes?
Well, the distribution is important, but if it's about the show, it's Shakespeare, all the way back to the play's the thing. And you can have a great distribution model, and there are plenty of cable channels that are distributed in 70, 80, 90 million homes that don't get much of a rating. People aren't watching them. And I'm reminded that everybody says they want to be a leader. If you're a leader and you look around and no one is behind you, Sam Nunn said, that's just going out for a walk. Leader means that there are people who are following along, that you are reaching folks. So distribution is important, but those cable entities that have full distribution of their signal but aren't generating ratings and people watching their programs aren't accomplishing their mission as a commercial enterprise.
Yeah, and certainly don't interest you. Since the 90s, people have been saying on local news, do we need 3 different stations, maybe 4 different stations for every market? Is it just too much there? But yet they continue. We haven't seen them closing their door or no longer doing news, for instance. What do you think going forward?
Well, I think you probably won't see as many stations doing news. Most stations that are affiliated with one of the major networks are committed as part of their network service to providing a local news service in the marketplace. And there's been enough advertising dollars to go around and enough audience to go around. And the ad dollars follow the audience. As the dollars are dispersed across so many other outlets, some news stations are going to be imperiled, and or they won't have the resources to compete, and they'll define their own demise in some respects. But that's variable by market. We have a strong station in Orlando, and Post Newsweek is a competitor, and Cox is a competitor there. And I don't foresee in my lifetime either one of those stations getting out of the news business. So we're going to be fighting for audience and revenue and ratings, but that's a vibrant market with some great projections in terms of population growth and ad revenue growth there. So someone will be first, second, or third, and the one that's first will do better than the others.
I'm glad to hear that too, because quality, I always feel, is the determinant around that. You started the conversation about disruption. Just the fact that Hearst has been into so many different areas, from newspapers to magazines to radio to television, you yourself radio to television. Do you think that gives the strength that the company has been in all those, and you still have healthy newspapers, television, radio, and TV?
Well, the beauty of Hearst is it's a diversified media company. We were in the newspaper business, we're in the magazine business, we're in the cable television business, we're in the broadcast television business, but Hearst, unlike a lot of other media companies, has had the best diversification strategy over the past 30 or 40 years. And today that includes what we call business media. We are one of the largest curators of medical and automotive data. If you're getting your car repaired, people will inevitably look at one of the Hearst online products about pricing for car parts. Interaction of prescription medicines. We own a lot of the data in this country and make that available in hospitals to doctors and the like. We own 50% of the Fitch rating agency. So Hearst is a media company at its core, but it's been a beautifully diversified business. The investment that we made 20-some years ago on ESPN, where we own 20% of ESPN, we own half of the A&E networks. So I think the senior management of the company and the board of the company is most proud of the diversification strategy we've had and the emphasis on leadership in every sector and on quality products to differentiate ourselves. And we've done that without incurring, today we have no net debt on the balance sheet. We've created all of these things with money that we've generated internally. And about 80 to 90% of the profit of the Hearst Corporation today comes from businesses that we weren't invested in or didn't own 25 years ago.
Wow.
And that's about innovation. And when you talk about disruption, with that comes opportunity, and innovation is what's really important for companies that have a long horizon. And we think we've been good at that in a lot of these different sectors. I think we've been innovative on the TV side of things in a very important way, and it's paid dividends to the company and the shareholders, family.
You've really given us an insight into that. I just want you to take me to your boardroom in a way, because sometimes when we read, let's say, one of our nation's biggest newspapers sold off its TV properties, sold off some of its other newspapers, and are trying to just go down to the core business, supposedly, of a national newspaper.
Right.
And so it might seem less diversity in a way because they gave up all those other products and online. So what was it about your boardroom that realized early diversification and the strengths?
Well, we thought we were good at a number of these different sectors. I think we recognized that earlier than some that the newspaper industry was going to change. And we once had afternoon newspapers, and they were the first such newspapers to run into trouble. So we repositioned those afternoon newspapers to be morning newspapers, and we selected some markets that have nice economic fundamentals. I think of Houston and San Antonio as places where we still have nicely profitable newspapers, but we felt that we needed a diversified portfolio of assets. It's really an investment strategy, if you will, and a lot of people talk about diversification, and we did that by practice in terms of wanting to be in some of these other businesses. We largely exited the radio business, and that was about not having an opportunity to have enough scale. It was a high-risk business, and we were modest players, so we did exit the radio business. And in the late 90s, we made the decision on TV that we had to get bigger or we had to get out, and then we allocated resources. We acquired Argyle, which was a modest, small public company on the television side. We then acquired the Pulitzer stations, which is a story of its own, that Hearst acquired Joseph Pulitzer's assets. We acquired KCRA in Sacramento. So we felt that we needed to get at larger scale on the TV side, and we've done that in the magazine side as well. We've acquired the Lagardère magazines. We've made a big bet in terms of the global magazine business, which is a challenge at the moment based on global economies and the economies in different countries. But we've got significant scale in all of these businesses. Today, the newspaper business is one of our smallest business lines, and yet it is a cornerstone of the Hearst Corporation, because that's where William Randolph Hearst started things in 1887.
Wow. So you were flexible, you're willing to take risks, and luckily you've had good judgment.
Good judgment, and that is indispensably important quality, and we've done that without incurring the debt that is almost the common denominator to problems that a lot of people got into when the economy turned down. Like everybody else, we had a rough go of it in 08 and 09, but we, not having any debt on the balance sheet, allowed us the headroom to navigate through the rough waters and to not disable a lot of our businesses by doing cuts that got to the muscle of the organization. And we didn't have to, we made cuts on the television side, but we were also very discerning and tried not to damage the product or compromise our ability to be leaders in the marketplace. And we had a balance sheet and a capital structure that gave us a little more flexibility than others had.
And you've announced you're going to sort of leave this CEO-dom, remain very much a part of Hearst, but it's been an exciting career, hasn't it?
I've had 30 years at Hearst, and it's been a spectacular company. It was a great place for me to end up. And John Conomikes, who was my mentor, and Frank Bennick, the longtime CEO of Hearst identified some talent in me and were able to manage me. And I feel blessed that I ended up at a company that was a perfect fit for me. And we've had great continuity in terms of how generations of management have handed off to others. Jordan Wertlieb will succeed me. We've already named him the president of Hearst TV. He's been with the company 20 years, and he worked at Channel 5 in Boston, and he worked at WBAL in Baltimore, where I came from as well. And he is a brilliant next generation executive who I'm convinced will take this thing to even a better place. I do feel for Hearst that the best is yet to come.
Mr. Hearst must be very happy wherever he is.
We hope so.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Susan.